Welcome to Focus on Why, the podcast where reflection sparks action. I'm Amy Rowlandson, and together we'll explore compelling stories, profound insights, and transformative experiences from inspiring guests worldwide. Feeling lost or unfulfilled? Searching for clarity, purpose, or meaning in your work and life? This podcast invites you on a journey of self-discovery to align your work with your values, shape your future with intention, and create a purposeful way of life. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we dive in, are you considering creating a podcast, or are you already hosting one, but it's not producing the results you desire? As a podcast strategist, I can help you launch or relaunch a purposeful and profitable podcast that will inspire, entertain, and educate a global audience. Book a call with me today. The link is in the show notes, and let's transform your podcast vision into reality. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Nick Gold. Nick, welcome.
Thank you, Amy. So delighted to be here with you and looking forward to it.
Yeah, me too. So what is it you're focusing on right now?
I love this question and I was thinking to myself, firstly, every year almost since kind of the pandemic, it's been like, this is the year where things are going to settle down. But very much this year, kind of on a personal perspective, my eldest daughter's just finished her GCSEs. My youngest daughter's just kind of turned 13 and going through, or just about to turn 13 and going through everything that a 13-year-old developed. My wife's 50th just happened, and I've got my 50th coming up in 2 months' time. So personally, there's a lot of change going on, or lots of things which are affecting me. And I started there because that's almost the same that I feel currently professionally as well. Every year I think, okay, we're going to go back to a place where things are level, things are calm, and kind of we know what's going to come around the corner. And the world keeps changing at a faster pace kind of every year. And right now, in business and in the world that I live in, the world of speaking, that is definitely happening, and I'm sure it's something we'll explore. But this is my focus: is actually how do I stay level-headed, or maybe not level-headed? How do I stay ahead of the rate of change that's going on in the world around me?
And I wonder whether it's always been a case of change, but we just didn't notice it so much. But now we're so much more alert to a big change, such as the pandemic, which was certainly an unraveling for a lot of people in terms of the status quo, actually having that opportunity to challenge it, to see whether it's something that we were wanting to be doing. But that change is ever constant. I think we're just a lot more aware of how much it can affect us.
I absolutely agree. And I think alongside that, it's that we're all going through change. And so those pillars you had around you, which almost gave you the ballast, gave you the support, you know that they're also going through stuff. And therefore, I think we're all, again, personally, professionally, we're all looking for where is our support structure and where is the stuff that's going to prop us up while we try and navigate what we're doing. And then you realise that actually everyone's going through this at the same time. So I suppose it's like those, the picture in my head of those things you see at the water parks where they've got the kind of trampolines in the water and you land on it and then you get pushed off and things like that. That's kind of how we all are. We're all tottering and trying to balance each other, knowing if someone lands on the same part you're on, you're the one who might fall off.
And it's funny that you use that metaphor, because the language you were already using was, in essence, a water one already, because you were talking about ballast and you were talking about navigation and having how we're all and calm and level-headed. And it's interesting because we're all going through change, but I had a metaphor used in the pandemic, which is, but we're all in different boats. We're in different boats. So yes, the sea is there and we're all navigating, but we're having different experiences. We're not all having the same experience throughout.
Yes. Yes. And I think what's interesting, and I agree with that, now, it's still in a way which turns around and says, there's so much discussion about generations and about the difference in generations. And that's because we now have different experiences and different history in different generations. And therefore we're looking back to what we know, or looking to what we know as that support structure. And therefore, we've got no common ground where we're starting from. And I think that's the major, when we talk about different boats on the water, it is the fact there's no common ground where we start the place from. And I think that's a really difficult thing for us as humans, where that instant connection that maybe you used to have because people kind of used to all clock on at 9 o'clock in the morning or whatever it might be, is no longer there.
Yeah. And the last big shift would have been a World War II, for example, and the common ground was how do we rebuild and restructure from that?
Yes, absolutely. And what you've got now, I mean, it's almost if you had World War II and how you rebuild that, and at the same time the Industrial Revolution happened, and that's what we are now. We're trying to rebuild from the pandemic, and at the same time we've got the two letters of the alphabet that are in every other sentence, which is AI going on, and combining them, it is, you just sit there and you're like, where do I go? What do I do? Where do I get my reference point from? And I suppose you build up this level of, and I suppose it's something I struggle with, and something I'm very conscious of, kind of the difference between arrogance and kind of confidence about the decisions you're making, because you're making them in a place where you don't know if they're right or wrong. You've got nothing really to reference it, but you appreciate, maybe because you're in a position of leadership, what it might be, that you've got to come across with that level of confidence to people. And that tip across as arrogant because inside you're feeling imposter syndrome like you've never felt beforehand. And I think it's a fascinating case. And I think you speak to people and everyone's going through that same thing. And everyone's looking around to try kind of come across as someone who understands what's going on. And the truth is no one really does.
And you tapped into something that really fascinates me, which is that intuitive intelligence, the knowing without knowing why. It was something that I referenced in my book, and that phrase is coined by a psychologist called Guy Claxton. And sometimes you do have a certain knowing and a trusting that this is going to be a good way to pursue. But then you also, as you reference, then you have that imposter syndrome, you have, or phenomenon, however you want to describe that, but you also have that the inner critic going on. There's lots of different voices, Nick.
100%. I think kind of my father, the one thing I think he taught me many things, and he gave me a lot of life lessons, but the one thing that I feel consistently in my life, it's what he told me, which is it's better to make a decision than not make a decision and then worry about the consequences afterwards. And I think kind of certainly in this day and age, that's held me in good stead, especially kind of as I built my business. It's something I really believe on. It's that I don't have the answers, but I understand that it's always better to make a decision, because if you try and work out all the kind of parameters and possibilities and everything around that, you end up in inertia. And going back to where we started, the rate of change, that's what's held me in good stead, is the fact that I'd rather make the decision and worry about it after. And then when I mentioned that word arrogance, it's like you sit there, you make a decision, and then you worry that people around you are thinking you're making that decision because somehow you think you're better than them. You're not. You're just making that decision because you know that there's no right, wrong. Well, you don't know what the right answer is, so you'd rather just make it and see what happens. Because really, kind of as long as you're staying safe, etc., there's not much you can do which can't be rectified.
That analysis paralysis that you're describing is often referred to as being on a roundabout, and you have to take an exit. And then you realize, actually, that was the wrong one. And you come back and you just take a different one. So, yeah, I hear you. How does this affect your business?
Hopefully. So that's a many layered question. I think hopefully from my perspective, what it does do is it gives the chance for everyone within the business to try stuff and know that actually I get more annoyed, more kind of frustrated when they're waiting to be told to do something. And the challenge for me is, how do you demonstrate that to them? And the way you demonstrate that to them is in your head, you're thinking every day has to be a yes day. And the old adage of like, well, from my experience, I've seen this hasn't worked before or anything like that. It's like you've got to put that to one side and just go, let's do this. And I try and take that across everything we do. Is actually we're very, very privileged in what we do at Speaker's Corner. The fun we have, and hopefully the joy and inspiration we bring to others. So let's try stuff and let's give it a go. And you know something, if it means other people are enjoying the benefits of hearing that speak, whatever it was, and as importantly, if it means the people within the business are enjoying what they do day in, day out, then realistically, even if it doesn't work, even if we try something it doesn't work, it's had its benefits anyway.
And you just referenced Speaker's Corner. Explain to the listener what it is that you do.
My apologies. Speaker's Corner, we are a speaker bureau, which means effectively what we do is we have the privilege of placing the right keynote speaker or motivational speaker at an event where they're looking for someone to come in and share their experiences or share their thoughts in order to help both everyone have a good time in the audience, but also for those who are interested in opening their minds, for them to learn something different and be able to take that into their everyday lives. And it's fun.
Yeah, fun's popping up a few times now. Fun, joy, inspiration. You are shaping the experiences by selecting the people who are going in and speaking in companies. So there is a responsibility, but also maybe even a bias. This is what I would like you to hear, to know. So how do you shape or decide what it is that you want to get out there into the world?
I think that's a great question. I think here's the thing for me is that we live in this society, going back to what kind of where we touched on all the way through. We're all confused. And if we accept we're all confused and we accept we all want, actually, we've got a quest all for knowledge because we understand that no one has a definitive answer anymore, then actually we want, to enjoy ourselves. What I mean by that is actually almost it's a given the speaker on stage is going to give us a good time. B, for those people who are looking to take it further, the speaker on stage understands that they are not the most important person in the room. It's actually the audience themselves who are the most important person in the room. So the ability to use their story in order to help people learn for themselves is absolutely critical. But the number one thing from my perspective in terms of bias, and I freely admit this, is what actually people want is to be around nice people. Nice, I hate the word. Be around decent people. So realistically, what's the number one thing for any speaker is actually the ability to connect with the audience as much off stage as on it. Because, I mean, one of my favorite stories I tell is about a speaker who, for whatever reason, it didn't work out on the night. But I said to them afterwards, if they would have stayed behind and stayed at the bar and had a few drinks with everyone, that's what the people would have remembered more than actually the session itself. And that's just being a decent human being. So realistically, when we talk about bias and what we're doing, actually kind of our jobs, our role, and the kind of, again, using the word fun, the fun we have at the business is to get below the skin and the veneer of these speakers, these amazingly successful people, and actually find out what they're like as human beings. So that's really what we are talking about to our clients.
So really, it's feeling corner, not speaking corner. Or speakers feels speak. I don't know how to say, but it is. It's about how you're making people feel.
Yes, exactly right. And kind of at whatever that word feeling, I think, kind of should be layered. Oh, there's the emotional feeling, and then there's the intellectual feeling. Ideally, you're combining both. But fundamentally, it doesn't matter what you've achieved in your personal life, which gives you the credibility to stand on stage. What matters is how I feel when I leave that room. And the starting place of that is, how do you relate to me when I'm sitting in an audience and you're standing on a stage higher up than me and you're looking down at me? How you can make that instant connection with me? Because the truth for anyone, whether you're in a meeting room, whether you're having kind of a pint with a mate in a pub, or a cup of coffee in a coffee shop, or being in front of 400 people, that ability to connect on an emotional level in the first place is what's going to open up kind of the person to be receptive to whatever you're saying. And it fascinates me over kind of the concept of training in this area, the concept of kind of the craft of the whole thing, as opposed to that just innate ability to be able to make those connections.
And what led you to this space, Nick?
So I kind of, like, as we all do, I fell into it, but I fell into it in kind of in a way that probably epitomizes everything about me. I kind of, in the previous life, a long time ago, kind of, which I barely remember, I used to be an audience member, and I heard lots of speakers, enormously successful people, and I'd kind of talk about how they'd achieve stuff and hold up their gold medals or celebrate their business with worth loads. And I'd sit in the back of the room thinking to myself, two things. Firstly, I'm never going to be able to win that gold medal, and because I'm not kind of, I haven't got enough skill or whatever it is. But secondly, probably more importantly, I'm probably just too lazy to do it. And therefore I'd switched off immediately from that person. And I got the opportunity. I was working in the tech space, and I was helping with a website, and this opportunity came across to me, and I thought, here's a chance to not only grow a business, go into a business, kind of start a business and grow it, but also more importantly, actually help shape a sector, help shape something. And this is 25 years ago, which I believed was only going to get bigger. I really genuinely believed, and still do, and we're seeing it, that actually we are all inquisitive and we all want to hear from others and learn from each other. And we can do that through the live, kind of through your next thought rather than your last thought. And I looked at, and that at the time of books and of television, and that's all about, and radio, and that's all about what you previously thought by the time I get to read it or listen to it or anything like that. Whereas actually that live environment is here and now. And that's what I want to hear. What's your next thought? How's your idea changed from yesterday to today? And so I fell into this industry with a view of, I'm not going to accept what it was. I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to come across really annoying, and I'm going to have fun along the way. And then my brother joined me 18 months into it. And then it became about having fun with my brother to build a business.
So a few values are surfacing here as you're talking, and fun again is still very much there, but that curiosity and that desire to understand more, to, as you said, we're all a bit confused. Yeah, that's what it's about. You're confused. What is life about? That leads me to this bigger question: how does purpose fold into what you do?
So it's really interesting, kind of, as you were saying, yes, the word funky is talking about, and then you use the word inquisitive. And I suppose I relate the two together. And I think that's, if you would ask me a while ago what my purpose was, it was the fact of kind of realizing that actually we all spend too long at work. So from the outset, I want to come into work and be surrounded by people who I work with, who actually I wanted to have conversations with, and actually wanted to enjoy their company and challenge each other. And I suppose at that point, and still now, and when I say at that point, and still now, my purpose is to be challenged every day so that actually I leave sounds grandiose, but leave a legacy in other people to remember me, not for what I have done or for what I've achieved, if I've achieved anything, but more for the fact that actually they've helped me grow and I've helped them grow. And that's a personal thing. And the realization, the wider purpose, is the fact that, listen, we are not the people who actually stand on stage and share our thoughts and help kind of people change their thoughts, minds, and opinions. But we are privileged that we are the people who actually make sure the right person is in front of these people. And therefore, I do believe now, through the business, we have an indelible impact on people's lives. And that's a responsibility, but also that's the purpose, is actually we're all searching for something, and we're in a place where we can help people find that.
And you say we're all searching for something, and we're looking to find it. This growth that you're talking about through the business, which helps you grow and it helps others grow, what does growth for you look like, feel like? What's the goal for this growth?
Yes, I think growth is a really interesting word, because actually growth for me, what it really looks like is comfort in your own skin. There's an acceptance that we live in kind of, we're seeing more and more that the Western world's fundamental kind of, I can't think of the right word, but is to grow in order to be more successful. And more successful involves material assets. And then again, harking back to the pandemic, there's realization that actually, however successful you are, you still have the same doubts. Perceived successful you are, you still have the same doubts in your head that people who weren't successful. And I think, therefore, that acceptance that everyone has their own kind of aspirations, and the biggest challenge for us is not to aspire because of the media or because of kind of what we perceive to be the right thing to be more successful by what they're telling me is a success, but rather than to be successful by what I want to achieve, is real. It's a real growth. And actually, therefore, the question for all of us is actually what would make me, at the end of the day, at the end of the month, at the end of the year, at the end of your life, feel like I've achieved something, I can walk away and do it. And I think I certainly come from a generation which was schooled by my parents' generation, which was the main thing was constantly build and constantly get bigger, and maybe it's just me, or maybe I'm sure they're not, but I suppose I always had that nagging doubt of why. Why do I need to do this? Why do I need the bigger thing? Why do I need this, like that? What would I rather? I'd rather that I told someone, and this has always been the case for me, I'd made someone laugh or told someone a story which actually they remembered, and that's what they remembered about me, rather than the fact that I had material stuff. I don't know if that sounds very whatever, but that's kind of my opinion of what growth is.
Yeah, and that's what I believe is what people are searching for externally. And so I say to people, stop looking for this purpose or this external why, because actually it's created and found within. And you're absolutely right. This comfort in your own skin, this acceptance of, actually, I don't need any more stuff. I just need to understand who I am and what it is that I can do to serve, to show others, or to be there for others in this purposeful way. And so my question for you is, what does meaningful success look like, feel like?
Again, I've kind of multi-layered answer, whatever. I mean, meaningful success, I think the starting place is something I'm really focusing on now, is on a personal level, is actually the realization that I want to be surrounded by people who I'm happy sitting in silence with. Because that's a comfort level, which means you're not trying to fill a void. So on a very much a personal level, that's what I'm looking for, and actually challenging myself about other people I'm with, because I should be with them, but actually I'm constantly trying to have to kind of fill this silence, or are these people who the conversation flows, and when it stops, that's also great. And then on a professional level, it's about what am I trying to say? It's about challenging myself and challenging the people around me every day to do stuff differently, and not differently, but just do stuff without ever feeling that actually we're trying to prove that to other people. We're doing stuff because we like the challenge. It's almost a starting place is, do we want to go there? If we don't want to go there, that's fine. But actually, we don't need to grow kind of this company with more people or higher revenues or whatever it might be, unless we actually want to do it. There's a reason for us to do it. And starting almost that kind of going back to whatever proposal put in, that as a starting point as to why do we want to do this? Why do we want to do this? Are we happy with where we are? It's a great question, because it challenges us at all points around and say, like, why is it that a company of 30,000 people is perceived as more successful as a company of 3 people? Well, that's just something that's fed into us because that's what society historically has dictated.
And this desire to have external validation and to meet the approval of others, this comfort level that you speak about, the silent corner, silent corner. I've said, yeah, it's like speaker's corner, silent corner. But it's very much, how do you translate this, Nick, when you're speaking to clients? Because people are judging the speakers that you're providing. They're judging them by their success. Do you have a conversation with them about managing expectations and understanding what it is that they're looking for and how to interpret success going afterwards?
So I think this the starting place, which I find fascinating about this, is the client willing to have that conversation as opposed to ticking the box that they feel they need to do and the perceptions of everything. And the way we combat that, the way we start, is that conversation with the client where they turn around and they phone, they say, we need a speaker, blah, 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 maybe suggesting some names. And the starting place is, what do you deem this session to be a success? And that's a question that they don't often ask themselves, because more often than not, the answer to success is that we have a session with a speaker. And then we know that actually we're delivering them something differently from someone who actually turns around and says, this is what we're hoping to achieve. And you talk about the challenges and stuff like that, and you have this thing in your head over the fact that you ask that question to a client and nothing will give you greater happiness than for them to say, well, actually, we've never defined that. And therefore, why are we wasting our time spending money? Let's go away and define that first, and then we can come back to you. And at the same time, then you've got the business sense of saying, well, yes, I know, but we need you to book someone because we've got to pay our bills at the end of the month. But the way we get deeper relationships with clients is by challenging them about why they are saying they need a speaker. Because start in that place and we can help you get the best possible speaker. And there's all sorts of things to say about this. If you are looking for the problem we have in this society is our perception. If you are looking for that big name speaker or even just someone from background or wherever they are, they're going to come on stage with preconceptions from the audience about what they can deliver. And that's really much harder to fulfill than someone who stands on stage and doesn't deliver anything. Doesn't come with any baggage or anything like that. When I say baggage, it might be amazing. So for clients who have always dreamed of meeting X, Y, and Z person, actually the truth is they're still just people. Whereas actually, if you're sitting in an audience and someone comes up on stage and captivates you, knowing nothing about them, the impact is so much higher. But it requires a leap of faith from the client, and it requires a leap of faith from the audience over the fact that they're going to kind of immerse themselves for the next 45 minutes, hour, whatever it might be, with this person. And again, that's about us and our curiosity and our willingness to submit to the unknown.
Yeah, I mean, this is a great space to be in. As a coach, I have to be comfortable with not having defined outcomes and to not be expecting to manage the outcomes. I have to sit in the unknown and work with a client because that's their decision to go where they want to go. In terms of metrics and markers of success and clients not having ever defined that before, again, success metrics in business historically have been built around the numbers, the finances, and instead of the personal growth or the relationships, the emotional well-being, the legacy and impact, those are the markers. Those are the areas alongside financial success, because that is helpful for a business to be profitable, of course. But those markers make a massive difference when you actually have a difference in defining them.
Absolutely. And I think I completely agree. I think the challenge we've got right now is, again, I revert back to the generational stuff, I revert back to the pandemic, is because of our experiences, both in terms of our kind of how long we've been around and how long we've been in the workplace, just our lives and stuff like that. We've kind of gone from a society where it has been all about the business metrics and very black and white to a place where it has been all about actually how are you today? How are you doing today? And now I think the problem right now is we're in this place where neither end of the spectrum is the answer. It has to be a match of two, but we've got a society conflicting itself over how you get there. And I think until we understand that actually both are correct and both have and finding a balance between the two, then you're going to have problems and kind of where we've got right now, in my view, which is like an antagonistic relationship between the company and the individual.
Yeah. And based on the fact that all companies are actually fictitious entities in themselves, they're just a group of people.
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yes, exactly right. But within that group of people, what you've got is you've got perceptions in terms of the hierarchy that those higher up on the hierarchy have different drivers to those who maybe kind of are a bit lower. But actually, my view is they don't on a personal level. What they do is that they end up kind of putting them in different boxes, and they're better at kind of, not better, but they actually end up creating kind of different personalities to fit the room, and therefore come across different things. And you're like, well, actually, if you knew the real me outside of the workplace, maybe you'd realise that actually I want the same things as you do, but I just understand that in certain different areas I have to act in different ways.
Yeah.
How we get to that place, like you talk about, kind of, I find fascinating, and I find, like, you talk about purpose, you talk about kind of where we're at, and actually maybe that is one of the things that I'm fascinated by, and what drives me on is actually what is the future. Like, we are all in a position where we can help create the future, and what does the future look like? Actually, how do we get those balances, and how do we keep going? And I think there's a lot of people driven by a lot of different things, but maybe it gives you a sense whereby you can help influence, and that's the opportunity we've got right now.
I agree. And I think that purpose is at the core of all the conversations that I have, alongside the individual values that people operate from, but also the success values that they are probably more unconsciously working with, because they don't necessarily have named them. And so they're driving them. And so when they don't understand why they're not reaching that success, it's because they're searching for something that's not actually aligned with themselves. It's being the influence from the societal expectations of bigger, faster, shinier, whatever it is.
Yes, I agree. Listen, I think, and again, this is a personal thing for me, is like challenging kind of your presumptions, challenging kind of stuff that you innately feel, because generally they've been kind of, they're because of your upbringing, and they're because kind of the things that you did when you were younger, and actually challenge them from that. It's a conscious effort. It's not something you just do and then you forget about, because you're always going to revert back to your core beliefs, which have been embedded in you from a young age. And therefore, that being conscious about those and being aware about those, and not just accepting them as always being there, and therefore challenging every single thing you do, means you're constantly trying to change and trying to evolve yourself. I think it's too easy to kind of, whether we're in the world of coaching or whatever it might be, to like have a breakthrough and then assume that breakthrough is a forever breakthrough. And then subconsciously, without you even realizing it, you end up reverting back to what you know and what you feel safe in over time, just because of the fact that you're not constantly broadening yourself and understanding that kind of, it's not a bad thing to have the kind of these thoughts bubbling up again, because that's innately what's inside of you. And at the same time, it's not immediate. You're not going to change and forever be changed. What's going to happen is you're going to have these two things, and both these thoughts are the right thoughts, and you get to make a choice in that moment in time about which path to choose, and that's a healthy choice always to make.
So this is an interesting perspective, Nick. You spoke about topics earlier, and you mentioned AI, and you probably class, I might be making an assumption here, correct me if I'm wrong, you probably class your speakers into areas of interest, topics, expertise, spaces that way. What about grouping them through how the audience will feel as a result of what they hear? So is it safety? Is it growth? Is it inspiration? Well, whatever the value is.
Absolutely. I kind of, but again, this comes back to our question of actually, is the client willing to go there? From our perspective, I think that's innately, again, that's what we try and get our team kind of, we get kind of, as Speakers Corner Office, we have 2 or 3 speakers coming in every week to speak to the team. And it's this weird thing whereby we're very, very privileged. We get to hear amazing speakers and enjoy those speakers. At the same time, we're thinking to ourselves, how can we pitch these to our clients? And the third point is actually, when we walk out, what has that made us feel? And kind of, therefore, what person would react to that? And we have to take that all in, and we then try and capture it ourselves. But the critical part about that is we have that information for those clients who are looking to actually really delve deeper. and really understand what they're trying to get out of the whole thing, we can give them that emotion. Because the truth is, the greatest speaker, the most incredible speaker, is going to impact different people in different ways, depending on what they're looking for from their outcome. They walk in with those preconceptions, 100%.
And that was something that came up as you were talking, or as I was reflecting on my question, is that, oh, actually, it's not as simple as that, because somebody will take something very different, because you take what it is that you're needing. Going back to those voids we sort of referenced right at the beginning, you are helping people to learn something that they didn't have, or to understand something that will help them grow. And you can't make the decision ahead of time of what isn't there for people.
And this, I think this is what I love about where we are now, or where we've always been, but where I've come to now, is the term keynote speaking, kind of, or someone giving a speech, implies this person's coming in to give you an idea, which is a finite idea, and that's the end of it. And actually, my belief is what they're really doing is just sparking a conversation. They're just giving their opinion. And the truth, we have, as human beings, we have to grow to a place where we understand, however credible they are and how much they might argue their opinions, and it might appear to be fantastic, I still have and absolutely, kind of, when I say fantastic, I mean in the sense of kind of, you can't dispute it at all. I still have the right as a human being to turn around and say, no, this is the route I'm going to take. And again, the thing I most desire, I'd love to see in this business, whereby someone books a speaker from us, they go up on stage, they give them the most incredible speech, and then the chairperson of that company comes out and says, thank you very much, so-and-so. I'd like all you people who are my employees in this company to understand that I disagree with everything that person's just said. For those of you who agree with that person, maybe this company isn't the right company for you. But for those of you who accept the fact that I disagree with what they've said, and this is my reason why, understand this. The most important part is the fact that I've listened to this person, and I'm prepared to give this person a platform in order to speak and give them kind of the session in order for them to make us understand, because that's the only way we're ever going to learn in life, is by getting all those opinions together. And that, for me, is a joy of speaking. It's not someone standing up anymore and telling us what's right, what's wrong, where it's going, what's going to happen, or anything like that. It's someone giving their viewpoint, and then I, as an audience member, who might not be as kind of on paper have the qualifications or anything like that as this person on the stage, I have the right to make my own choice. And my responsibility within the whole thing is to be around people to understand what their thoughts are and opinions are, so I can become a better person.
And it goes back to that place where you said something, you want to have a yes day. You want every day to be a yes, let's do this. But it's not a yes, let's agree with everything everyone's saying. It's a challenge, as you said, challenging people. And it is important to hear and listen to others, to understand, actually, we may not have all the information to have made a decision that we have, because now, actually, this has now come to light, so we need to make a different decision. And it is a case also of, just because you made a decision before based on what you knew, now you realize, okay, that's not right, I need to accept that and move forward. Again, it's understanding your failings as much as your successes, understanding that you are, and I don't mean this as a binary thing at all, because it's not. There are so many different ways that a speaker who is standing in front of you will impact you. And it may not even be what they've said, but it could be that they've just triggered a thought for you, and then you go off and do something as a result. I call this reflection with action. Reflection being where the why is. The why is the emotional significance that drives the purpose, and the purpose is how you then put that into motion. So reflection with action is describing exactly what you said, which is what happens after your talk has had the impact.
I love that, and that's exactly right. And I think the biggest challenge for us over there, and the part that I aim for every day, is, certainly for myself, I don't need to justify the decision that I've made to myself. Like we talked earlier about that feeling, that gut feeling. It's like, something, I might have picked up information subconsciously, which I wasn't even aware of, and actually, therefore, my decision has been made. My decision, my thought process has changed. That's not a bad thing, because again, bringing it full circle, if the rate of change we're at is faster than any other time in history, and we've got all these unknowns going around us, then I should be in a position I should feel comfortable changing my ideas from 1 minute to the next, and never having to turn around and question why I've done that to myself.
And it goes back to you saying there has to be this acceptance of being comfortable in your own skin.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's all.
Oh, Nick, we could continue this conversation for ages. Thank you so much for sharing just a small amount of why you do what you do. How would someone reach out and connect? I know we'll put it in the show notes, but just showcase them or direct them to where is best.
So two places. Firstly, kind of, if you're looking to find me, I'm on LinkedIn, so please come and find me there. For Speaker's Corner perspective, if you're looking for a speaker or a host or anything for your events, come to Speaker's Corner, go to the website, speakerscorner.co.uk. And lastly, something different, if you're thinking of becoming a speaker, or you are a speaker and looking to accelerate your career, have a look at Future Voices. That's at future-voices.com, designed to help you develop your career. There you are. That's a quick plug for all my places.
I love that. And what I am hearing, Nick, is you mentioned earlier about how you're leaving this legacy, and it's not through what you personally achieve, it's actually what you're instigating every day. And you won't hear of all of the different ripples that happen because of all the different speakers that are going out into different industries or different events, and they are instigating change. People are going home, they're sharing that with their families, their children, peers, siblings, all sorts of people are then doing something as a result. So there's no way of tracking your impact, this indelible impact that you're having, but knowing the choices that you've made in selecting the people who are representing your company and going out there, you know that they are the right people in the right places, who are kind and nice and decent, who are helping shape the future. So I love the fact that it's Future Voices.
Thank you so much. And that's why, kind of, when mentioned before, like our bias and everything like that, yes, fundamentally we want decent people to be talking to decent people, because the impact that could be had, we don't need to know the results, we just know it's out there and it's happening.
Yeah, I love that. Nick, thank you so much again for coming on Focus on Why. Do you have a final word or two for the listener, please?
I think my final word is to reinforce what we've been talking about now, is actually there are no absolute rights, no absolute wrongs in what we do. What there is their comfort in what you do, and actually taking joy and fun from every day. And you do that and you're going to have a great life, and you're going to enjoy every part of it.
This episode's over, but let's keep the conversation going. How has this episode impacted you? Share your insights, takeaways, and reflections with actions on social media, or leave a review on Apple Podcasts. Your feedback creates powerful ripple effects, helping others to discover its value. Want to dive deeper into purpose? Check the show notes for links on how to work with me, where to buy my new book, Focus on Why, Create a Purposeful Way of Life, available in paperback, ebook, and audiobook, and where to sign up for Friday Focus, my weekly newsletter. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.